Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Griff Hamlin here. Today's video is actually some tone. We're going to talk about some tone and a little bit of gear. This is in regards to a lot of questions that I've been fielding for how I got some of the sounds on my new Classic Rock Guitar Unleashed course. So by and large, there's sort of two different setups, and I want to sort of talk a little bit about each. And the first setup is the way I recorded I'll say the jam tracks. So those were actually recorded in my studio, and I used a Kemper profiling amp. And for the majority of the guitar tones are Michael Britt's 69 Marshall profile. So it's literally just this guitar, this one right here, into that 69 Marshall, playing over the drums and the bass. Of course, I didn't play the drums. Chris, my drummer, played the drums. I played a lot of the bass parts. Actually, I think I played all the bass parts. I did. I played all the bass parts, also through the Kemper profiling amp. There's an Ampeg SVT emulation in it. Not an emulation, profile. Profile is a little bit different than modeling. But for the bulk of the stuff, it was that 69 Marshall. I used a little bit of a twin, also from Michael Britt, and my own amp for the sort of more Vox Beatles type stuff, or more cleaner type stuff. I used a Bad Cat Cub 2, or my Nace. I have the new Pro 18. I've also profiled that because I use that a lot. So those are the main sounds that I used throughout. But what you're probably gonna have more experience with is the sounds that I actually use in the videos. And I don't use the profiler when I video. I actually use a 11 rack by used to be DigiDesign, now it's Avid. And I would show you mine, but the faceplate is actually burnt out. It's stuck on one sound. It's a super reverb that I created once upon a time. You can actually download it from 11rackpresets.com. I think it's still there. Anyway, it's the sound I use pretty much for everything. And what I do is I put in front of that a Line 6 M13. So the bulk of what you'll hear is actually just the guitar straight into this, and you'll notice that nothing is on. Often I'll turn on a reverb. This is a 63 spring. But notice still, nothing fancy. So for most of the, I'll say, clean stuff in the first several lessons, that's what you're hearing. Once it starts to need some overdrive, I kick on the tube drive model. Now, if I need to gain it back, I actually just turn the volume down on my guitar. So you can hear as I back off the volume, it's just not nearly as much. And then if I'm demoing, then I have that. Now I can also do things like use the neck pickup. But the tube drive in this covers a lot of ground. Now, to me, the tube drive, if you didn't have one, you could replicate it very easily. One of the reasons I like it is it actually sounds like my old Ibanez Tube King that's deceased. Doesn't seem to work anymore. A full tone OCD, even a rat pedal. The old school rat pedals actually have a great sound. It's kind of it has a little bit of a mid-range push on it, a little bit attenuated in the lows and the highs, but still nice and bright, still cuts through and has plenty of distortion on tap. But like I said, the Rat OCD, Atomic, XTS Atomic Overdrive, if you're familiar with that, of course the Friedman pedals or anything that's got more of that gain, the Wampler, Plexi type stuff, all of those would do the job. It's, sort of that Marshall crunch thing going on. And really, I'm controlling the amount of overdrive simply with the volume knob. So when I have, when I need more, I turn it all the way up. When I need less, I just bring it down. Maybe bring into the middle pickup. You'll also notice that I'm only working one volume knob. I always rewire my guitar so that there's a master volume on my Les Pauls. So that when I'm singing, I can still reach down and adjust the volume. So that's where that comes from. Now, basically, that's it. I mean, I pretty much did about 80 to 85% between either just a clean tone or the more Marshall-y stuff. I used that. But I did occasionally use a tube screamer. And the tube screamer, again, comes from the Screamer emulation in the Line 6. I just bring the drive down a little bit. For all of that kind of classic So when I need, just a little bit of overdrive, the Rolling Stones type stuff, that's typically where I will use the Screamer instead of the tube drive. If I back off on the volume with the tube drive, it's very similar to the Screamer sound. So they're really subtle, and it's kind of splitting hairs. And to be honest, you could probably do most of it with a single pedal. So I wanted to kind of show this because I know that it seems like it might be this big elaborate setup, and it's really not. You could do this, you could have a Boss DS1 distortion would cover all of these tones if you played it right. One of the things is that my amp, I know it's a modeler, but I set the amp not too bright. That is a key element of the sound. When you kick on a distortion box in front of the amp, if the amp is bright, if it's got a lot of high end in it and the treble's up really high, it's going to make the distortion sound worse. It's going to make it sound really brittle and really harsh. So one of the ways that I get that nice kind of warm sound is to start with a little bit more subdued clean tone. Since I know I'm really not going to use the clean tone, I'm really just using it as something to lay the overdrive on top of. I want to make it a nice neutral palette to work with. So it's not super bright. If I'm on the it's just, I'll say generic, and that's kind of on purpose. When you're using a lot of pedals, you don't want something that's, super bright and spiky or super woolly or super mid-range heavy. You want something that's got a nice even palette. At least I do. That's my preference for how I like to run these things. So hopefully that answers the questions. And of course, if you have any more questions, post them in the comments below this video, and I'll be happy to answer them as best as I can. But it's really not a complicated rig. Being that this 11 rack has died, I'm going to bring my NACE Pro 18 in here and start using that full time. I've used it on several videos in the past, but it has a nice record out feature. So that makes it easy in the video studio here to record, directly to the digital audio recorder. But I'll cover some recording techniques and things like that in other videos. I don't want to get too carried away with that here. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and hope you get something out of it, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon.